This is Booked for Drama, where stories burn, hearts break, the tea is always hot and never a part 2. Today we're diving into Love Bitter Aftermath. Let's go. Chapter 1. Every time my husband, Damien, brought his secretary into our bedroom, he made me kneel by the bed and wait. If she didn't know what to do, he'd make me teach her, guiding her hands with mine. And after they were finished, I would dutifully approach with a tray, offering them drinks to soothe their throats. Damien would grip my neck, his voice a low rasp. "Don't you feel a single shred of jealousy?" I would just shake my head, even offering to get them protection for next time. His rage would boil over. He'd throw me onto the bed and take me again and again, but the next day, I would be right back on my knees beside their bed. He'd snarl through clenched teeth, "Alara, you're pathetic." I would only smile at him. He didn't know. He didn't know that these were the last days I had left to spend with him. I walked into the house to the familiar scene playing out on the living room sofa. Sienna, the secretary, had her back to me. Hearing the door, she turned, a triumphant smirk playing on her red lips as she deliberately let out a moan. Ignoring them, I tied on my apron and went into the kitchen. I chopped vegetables, the rhythmic thud of the knife on the board, a countdown until they were finished, until it was my turn to go out and clean up after them. Sienna's throat was always raw afterward. She required honey water to soothe it. I knelt silently, offering the glass to her with both hands, like a servant from a bygone era. Damien lit a cigarette, his gaze flicking over me, his sharp brows furrowing in irritation. Crash! Sienna's hand went limp as she took the glass. Scalding honey water shattered on the floor, splashing all over me. "Oh, dear, Alara, are you all right?" she cried, rushing to help me up. But as she grabbed my arm, her nails dug viciously into my flesh. I sucked in a sharp breath against the pain. She leaned in close, her face a mask of false concern that Damien couldn't see, a venomous threat glittering in her eyes. "You have to be more careful, Alara. If you don't want to serve me, you could just say so. No need to throw a tantrum." I gritted my teeth, forcing a smile. How could? With that, I gestured for her to return to the sofa while I knelt to clean up the mess. Shards of glass dug into my hands and knees, the sticky honey water making the tiny cuts sting and tremble. Yet I clenched my jaw, acting as if I felt nothing, even lifting Sienna's foot to wipe a stray drop of honey water from her shoe. "Get out," Damien's voice was cold as he tossed Sienna her clothes. "Mr. Ashford, you're done here." Sienna pouted, shooting me a resentful glare before slipping into her dress, grabbing the designer handbag Damien had bought her, and leaving. I remained on the floor, silent. It wasn't that I didn't want to get up. My knees were bleeding, and every movement was agony. "Still have nothing to say to me?" Damien's voice was like ice. I shook my head. He gritted his teeth. "It's just us here. I can personally guarantee this house isn't bugged. I really have nothing." Damien slammed his cigarette down. He lunged, one hand closing around my throat, the other shoving a photograph of a man in my face. "We both know he's the killer. Why won't you testify? What the hell are you to him?" I looked at the man in the photo and gave a bitter laugh. "I don't know him." "Then why are you protecting him?" I met Damien's furious gaze. "I'm not." He threw me to the floor and began to pace, a caged animal. "Was my sister not good enough for you?" At the thought of Lily, my eyes stung. I shook my head. She was the best friend I ever had. He seized my chin, forcing me to look at him. "And this is how you repay her? By letting the monster who killed her walk free?" I couldn't speak. He threw a crime scene photo in my face. The horrific image of my dearest friend, her body covered in wounds, hanging from a tree, tore a scream from my throat. I clamped my hands over my eyes, the nightmare seared into my mind. "You can't bear to look, can you?" he hissed, forcing my face up. "Then tell me what that bastard did." "I swear." Chapter 2. Alara, if you testify, I'll get rid of Sienna for good. I'll send her away, and you'll never see her again. My eyes were red, but a sad smile touched my lips. "There's no need." His hand on my shoulder went rigid. "You'd rather watch me with her, day after day, right in front of your face?" "It doesn't matter." Slap. The sting of his hand across my cheek was white hot. His fist trembled uncontrollably. "You're truly pathetic, Alara." Pathetic. His words hit me like another slap. The Damien I once knew would never have said such a thing. Back in school, when boys made fun of my looks, he'd used his fists to make a dozen of them apologize. After we were married, he never let me cook, fussing over the smallest cut on my finger like it was a mortal wound. I truly believed we would go on like that forever. That he would always protect me. "Damien," I whispered, my voice hoarse. He spun around, a flicker of hope in his eyes. I tried to stand, but a sharp, stabbing pain shot through my chest and I collapsed. The image of Lily dying in front of me flashed through my mind. I clutched the fabric over my heart, gasping. When I looked up, I saw the front door creak open. Sienna had never left. She peered at me through the crack, a smug, predatory look in her eyes. She pressed a single finger to her lips in a universal sign for silence. Shush, what were you going to say? Damien pressed, waiting. I shook my head. He stepped closer. You were about to say something. I know it. Mr. Ashford, Sienna called from the doorway. Damien froze but didn't turn away from me. He was still waiting. I glanced at Sienna's tense expression, then reached into my pocket and pulled out a box of condoms, holding it out to him. Don't forget this. A dark, humorless laugh escaped Damien's lips. He snatched the box and threw it in my face before storming out. Sienna closed the door for him, a satisfied smirk on her face as she watched my unspoken words die on my lips. The door slammed shut, leaving me in the echoing silence. I slumped against the wall, my hand clutching my chest. Not yet, just a little longer. I have to wait a little longer. I searched through room after room in the enormous estate before I found a small first aid kit to patch myself up. A month passed. Damien never came home. Then one day, the front door was kicked open with a thunderous crash. Damien charged in, carrying a blood-soaked Sienna in his arms. Behind him was a team of private medical professionals. The team had originally been for me, for my poor health. But after Lily died, he'd sent them away. Damien paced anxiously outside the room where they worked on Sienna, his ears tuned to her pained cries. He spotted me and dragged me forward. Why did you push her? I stared at him, confused. Did you know she was over a month pregnant? Did you do this to her on purpose? My eyes widened as I looked toward the room. Sienna's brows were only slightly furrowed, she didn't look to be in much pain at all, but her screams were blood-curdling. Her eyes met mine, filled with a silent threat. A slow smile spread across my face. Yes, what of it? Damien froze, searching my expression. Do you have any idea what you're admitting to? I do. You're not even going to try and defend yourself? There's nothing to defend. Once you confess, I'm pressing charges. Assault. I stiffened, my gaze locking with his. He stared back, his eyes boring into me. Or, you tell me the truth about what happened to my sister, and I'll let this go. I glanced toward Sienna's room. I took a deep breath. You'll find out. Hope flickered in his eyes. But not now. His grip on my shoulders tightened, his eyes turning red. What is your relationship with that murderer? You'd rather go to prison than betray him? Tivey told you, Damien, I have nothing to do with him. He was so furious he was speechless. He just nodded, his jaw tight. You think I won't do it? You think I won't send you to prison? I just looked at him. He shoved me away. 3 days later, I received a court summons. The moment I pleaded guilty in court, I saw Sienna raise an eyebrow, a flicker of an I knew it expression on her face. Only Darian's face was a mask of stone-cold fury. He'd hired the best lawyers, a team of sharks who picked through legal statutes and twisted my actions until they'd stretched my sentence to the maximum, 8 years. He came to see me. Testify for Lily. I can get you out of here. I just smiled at him. Take care of yourself, Mr. Ashford. I probably won't make it out of here alive. His breath hitched, and a look of pure agony crossed his face. You know, that night, it was just him and the two of you. You saw everything, didn't you? I said nothing, which was its own confession. In high school, when you could only afford 1 meal a day, it was Lily who shared her lunch money with you every single day. Have you forgotten all that? Tears streamed down my face. I shook my head. No. Then why won't you just say it? My eyes were red when I met him. Not now. Do I have to die before you're willing to talk? Shook my head again. Not your death, mine. When I died, the killer would be brought to justice without me ever having to say a word. But I couldn't tell him that. I was afraid it would break him. Thought the truth would come out while I was in prison. But less than a month later, my sentence was overturned. I was declared innocent and released, completely bewildered. Damien was waiting for me outside, leaning against his Rolls-Royce. The drive home was silent. As we stepped through the door, I finally spoke. Thank you. He stopped but didn't turn around. You're pathetic, Alara, he said, before heading upstairs. I laughed, but tears fell. Sienna's baby had been saved. Damien never brought her back to the house to flaunt in front of me again. We lived under the same roof, but we were strangers. If we passed in the hall, he'd look right through me. He refused to touch a single bite of the food I made. I didn't react. I just went on with my quiet routines. Finally, after a month, he broke. He knocked on my door, the smell of alcohol clinging to him. "We need to talk." His eyes were rimmed with red. "Let him in." We sat down together, a rare moment of peace between us. "I'm begging you. Please, testify for Lily. Please?" His voice was low, stripped of all its usual authority. "If you agree, I'll make Sienna get rid of the baby. I'll even give you my assets, everything." I shook my head. "There's no need. Who the hell is Rick to you?" "Rick, the monster who had killed Lily. I've told you so many times. I have nothing to do with him. How am I supposed to believe that?" His eyes were bloodshot. "You'd protect the man who murdered Lily, a man you claim is a stranger?" Looked him straight in the eye. "Damien, the day that baby is born, I promise you, you will know the truth." "I can't wait for another day," he exploded, jumping to his feet. "Alara, if you don't tell me everything right now, we're through." My heart clenched. The look on his face told me he wasn't bluffing. Pressed my lips together and nodded. Fine. The time I'd had with him, it had been long enough. More than I deserved. His breath caught. The hand gripping my shoulder began to tremble. "Say that again. Let's separate. It's for the best." Chapter 3. He laughed, a bitter, broken sound. "You think I'm joking?" I said nothing. He stormed out, slamming the door behind him. That night, divorce papers were thrown in front of me. I would leave with nothing. I picked up the pen, ready to sign. He grabbed my wrist. "Think carefully before you sign this." "I have," I said, nodding. Then, I slowly began to write my name, the pressure of my hand dragging his along with it. The moment finished, he snatched the papers away, a childish, spiteful gesture. He loomed over me. "I was wrong about you." I closed my eyes. That day, I was thrown out of the estate. With no money to my name, I found a tiny, 300-square-foot rental. And I waited. I waited for the day of judgment. I could almost see it. The day I died, the day Rick was finally brought to justice. My breath hitched, my hands trembling. On that day, I could finally face Lily with a clear conscience. But that moment didn't come. What came instead were Damien's bodyguards. They dragged me back to the mansion. The first thing I saw was Sienna, lying on the bed, covered in blood. The swell of her stomach was gone. Damien's eyes were sunken and bruised, as if he hadn't slept in days. The moment he saw me, he slapped me hard. "You said you didn't care if she had the baby. You said you could accept anything. So why did you hire men to assault her until she miscarried?" I was stunned. Sienna's body shook with sobs. "Alara, if you didn't want me to have the child, I would have gotten rid of it. Why did you have to torture my baby out of me in such a cruel way?" I looked at her torn clothes, the blood soaking the sheets, and I understood what she was claiming had happened. Damien kicked the back of my knees, forcing me to the ground. He pinned me there. "I will find the thugs you hired. I'll make sure those animals who did this to Sienna, who took my child from me, suffer a fate worse than death. But you, I can give you one more chance." He yanked my chin up, his fingers digging into my jaw until it felt like the bone would crack. "Testify. Go to court and testify, and I'll have my legal team defend you. Get you a reduced sentence." Cold sweat beaded on my forehead. I struggled to speak. "I'm afraid, I can't." "What did you say?" "Because I'm going to die." He let out a derisive, angry laugh. "You're still protecting Rick, even now? I'm telling you, this is your last chance. You will be a witness, whether you want to or not." He grabbed my hand and, with a sickening crack, bent my ring finger back until it broke. The wedding band was still on it. A gut-wrenching scream tore from my lungs. "Are you going to talk?" he snarled, squeezing my jaw. "What did Rick do to my sister that night?" My body was slick with sweat. "When I'm dead, you'll know." His eyes were a terrifying shade of red. He seemed to think I was taunting him. "You really think I can't bring myself to kill you?" My index finger. Another snap. "Talk. Just kill me," I sobbed, tears streaming down my face. "Kill me, and you'll know everything." His eyes were wild. He nodded. "Fine, I'll grant your wish." Chapter 4. He picked up a wrench. He brought it down on my fingers. "No, Damien, wait." One by one, he smashed every single one of my fingers. But the pain in my heart was infinitely worse. I lay collapsed on the floor, my lips turning blue. Damien's hand, still holding the wrench, trembled. "If I go to prison for this, so be it. We'll go together." Coughed up a mouthful of blood. With my last ounce of strength, I reached up with my broken hand and ripped the buttons from my shirt. "You want the truth? Here it is." When he saw my chest, the wrench fell from his hand with a deafening clang. "Alara?" He stared at the jagged, brutal scar over my heart, his fury evaporating into stunned silence. Sienna, who hacked Dean weeping theatrically, froze. A flash of cold panic crossed her face before she quickly composed herself, reaching for Damien's sleeve. Damien, but he was already moving. He swept me into his arms, his first instinct to call for the medical team. But when he saw Sienna's pleading, pathetic face, he hesitated, then took only half the team with him as he brushed me away. The best cardiac specialists. A short while later, they emerged, their faces grim. Mrs. Ashford's condition is extremely complex. We have to transfer her to the capital city for surgery. You're the best in the field. What do you mean you don't know what's wrong? The lead surgeon shook his head, a troubled look in his eyes. Damien's face hardened. Since Lily's death, since Alara had refused to testify, he hadn't touched her. He had no idea where a scar like that could have come from. The capital city. Just before the surgery, I regained consciousness for a fleeting moment. Looking at the white-coated figures round me, I forced the words out. When I die, take what's in my heart, give it to the police. Damien, dressed in sterile scrubs, stared at me, stunned. He opened his mouth to ask another question, but I had already slipped back into darkness. Outside the operating room, the head surgeon emerged, his brow slick with sweat. The situation is complicated. There's a foreign object in the patient's heart, but it's dangerously close to a major artery. Attempting to remove it could nick another vessel. A rupture in that area, she might not survive. The mortality rate is over 70%. We are legally obligated to inform the family. Damien's breath hitched. Can it be left in? The doctor shook his head. Frankly, it's a miracle the object hasn't shifted and pierced the aorta already. We can't guarantee it won't move in the next second and cause a fatal hemorrhage. Damien's breathing was ragged. For now, we recommend leaving it in and observing her. We'll convene to discuss a new surgical plan. Damien had no choice. He waited outside the ICU, his mind a chaotic storm. Alara's last words echoed in his head, refusing him a moment of peace. What's in my heart? It had to be the key to solving his sister's murder. Chapter 5. But was he willing to trade Alara's life for that justice? He drove his fingers through his hair, letting out a long, shuddering sigh. He was waiting for the surgeon to return when a familiar voice called his name. Mr. Ashford? It was Sienna. Her lips were still pale. She had clearly left her own recovery bed to follow him here. What are you doing here? Damien frowned. You just had a major trauma. You should be resting at home. Sienna glanced towards my room, carefully hiding the anxiety in her eyes. I was so worried about Alara. I less than know what she did to me, but she did service for so long. I can't be as heartless as she is. Is her surgery over? Damien shook his head. There's a foreign object in her heart. It's too risky to remove. Sienna subtly relaxed. Damien's gaze fell on the man standing behind her. And this is? Oh, I was worried the doctors here weren't skilled enough, so I took the liberty of calling Dr. Evans. Damien had heard of Dr. Evans. He was a world-renowned cardiac surgeon, but getting an appointment was early impossible. Damien would have requested him himself if he'd thought it was an option. Sienna pulled the doctor forward. Why not let him perform the surgery? With his skill, he'll be able to remove the object from Alara's heart without any trouble. A surge of hope shot through Damien, but for some reason, a deep, gnawing unease settled in his gut. No, it's fine. Sienna blinked. Mr. Ashford? The team here is responsible and they've worked together for years, Damien said, sinking back into his chair. It's not good to switch lead surgeons. Sienna bit her lip, her eyes darting toward my room again. She twisted the corner of her shirt. But I begged Dr. Evans for so long to come. Damien was silent for a moment. Then we'll trouble Dr. Evans to consult. The man in the mask, the one called Dr. Evans, exchanged a quick, bright-eyed glance with Sienna before composing himself. Of course, Mr. Ashford. You can rest assured. The scar on my chest was from that night. From trying to save Lily. Rick had stabbed me, and I'd collapsed in a pool of my own blood, helpless, as I watched him violate and murder my best friend. I thought I would die with her. I never expected to wake up in a hospital. I wanted to expose Rick's crimes, but when I returned to the scene, it had been compromised. The only evidence was a broken tactical knife, but it couldn't be definitively linked to him. But I knew. That knife was Rick's signature. He'd commissioned a master artisan to engrave his name on the blade. The artisan even confirmed it. But with the blade broken, the chain of evidence was shattered. Only I knew where the other half was. It was lodged in my heart. I'd considered having it removed, but the doctors told me it would trigger a massive hemorrhage. My chance of survival was less than 5%. But leaving it in was a ticking time bomb. I didn't have long to live either way. No one could guarantee the blade wouldn't shift and kill me in my sleep. I spent a whole day thinking, and then I wrote a letter. My last will and testament. In it, I instructed that upon my death, the object in my heart must be removed. But I couldn't tell Damien. He would never let me have the surgery. He couldn't accept the fact that I could die at any moment. And he couldn't bear the agony of knowing his sister's killer was walking free while the key to his conviction was trapped inside me. For him, it was a no-win situation. But for me, it wasn't. I was a dying woman. Every extra day I got to spend with the man I loved was a day one. I just never imagined he would come to hate me so much. I was the only witness, yet I refused to cooperate, refused to answer any questions. I couldn't bear to have the thing in my heart ripped out. It would mean the end of the last days we had together. So he used every cruel trick he could think of to break me, bringing home a parade of women, forcing me to kneel and serve them. Not even Sienna's pregnancy was enough to pry my lips open. He thought Rick was my lover. How could he? I wanted to kill the man with my own hands. Chapter 6. The evidence that could destroy his sister's killer was in his wife's heart. I couldn't. I would be under if he knew. So I let him hate me. Let him hate me so much that when I died, he wouldn't feel a thing. I swallowed the words, again and again. Some things in life, it seems, are a dead end from the very beginning. Damien waited outside the operating room. The lead surgeon came out quickly. He handed him a piece of metal in a plastic bag. It was a dull, flat shard, something that could never have come from Rick's ornate knife. Is that all? Damien asked, stunned. That's it. Perhaps the patient was in another accident before. We've already notified the police. Damien was lost in thought. He didn't truly give up hope until the police investigation came back, confirming the metal shard was unrelated to Lily's case. Neither of us had expected it. I woke up. That 5% chance had fallen on me. Damien came to see me once. His expression was cold. Your lies are pathetic, Alara. I stared at the piece of metal that could never have been in my heart, my brow furrowed. That's impossible. Someone must have switched it. The surgeons who operated on you are the best in their field. Why would they risk their entire careers to protect a murderer? Not to mention Dr. Evans, one of the most famous surgeons in the world, was consulting. What Dr. Evans? Damien's voice was frigid. The doctor Sienna personally brought here for you. You tried to kill her and her child, and yet she still saved your life. My eyes went wide. Sienna brought him? Don't look so offended. If she hadn't, you wouldn't have woken up at all. He turned his back on me. Maybe divorcing you was the right decision. You've become someone I don't even recognize anymore. I opened my mouth to speak, but he was already gone, the door slamming shut behind him. I clutched my chest. Sienna would arrange for a doctor to save me? A doctor skilled enough to remove the object from my heart and keep me alive? My mind was a whirlwind of suspicion as I was discharged. On my way out, I passed a private room and heard a familiar voice. I've booked your ticket. Once you leave the country, don't come back. I know, I can visit you abroad. It's better than you staying here and getting caught one day. I froze. That voice. It was Sienna. Was she talking to her brother? I've handled Damien. Lucky for us, the man I hired looked enough like the real Dr. Evans that he now believes the thing in Alara's heart is gone. But Alara could drop dead at any moment, and then I might not be able to protect you. Remember, until I give you the all clear, you cannot come back. My legs almost gave out. The evidence was still in my heart? Sienna and Rick, they were siblings? Excuse me, miss, are you lost? A smooth, low voice came from behind me. My whole body went rigid. I turned. The man in the mask, the one with eyes so similar to the famous Dr. Evans, was looking down at. The door to the room opened. Sienna was staring at me in shock, the phone still pressed to her ear. From it, I could hear Rick's tinny voice. Chapter 7. Hello, sis? Back at the mansion, Damien's hand struck my face. Behind him, Sienna was weeping. He gritted his teeth. If she hadn't found a doctor to save your life, you'd be dead. You, who just cost her a child. And now you try to push your savior down the stairs? This time, I didn't stay silent. Damien, don't believe her. She's Rick's sister. You can check her call history. She only pretended to fall because she knew I overheard her phone call. Sienna's sobs grew louder. Alara, what are you talking about? My last name is Knight, that monster's name is Feng. How could I be his sister? I would never associate with a murderer. It's not that complicated, I shot back. One of you took your father's name, one took your mother's. Sienna's eyes reddened. Fine. If you're so suspicious, then let Mr. Ashford investigate. Here, take my phone. It's clear I'm not trusted anyway. No matter what I do for you, you'll always be against me. She held out her phone. Damien looked at it, a flicker of pity in his eyes. He pushed her hand away. Of course I trust you. He turned to me. Alara, I'm done giving you chances. In 3 days, you'll be in court. I'll make sure you spend the rest of your life in prison. He took Sienna's arm and turned to leave. I scrambled forward, blocking his path. Damien, if you go with her, you'll be in danger too. Enough. He shoved me hard. I hit the floor, and I felt it. A sharp, terrifying shift inside my chest. My eyes widened in horror. The blade, it had moved. I trusted you so many times, and every single time you were either protecting that killer or playing some two-faced game. I have no patience left for you. You are no longer my wife. I reached a trembling hand toward him. Damien, the hospital? A flash of panic crossed his face, quickly replaced by a cold sneer. Oh, stop pretending. Dr. Evans already took the object out of your heart. He said you were fine. What are you trying to pull now? My lips were turning blue. I couldn't form words. He watched me for a few seconds, frowning. I'm not in the mood for your theatrics. You can stay here and entertain yourself. I reached for him, my strength failing. The door closed in my face. My hand fell heavily to the floor. My vision began to blur. After settling Sienna, Damien's first stop was the hospital to thank the lead surgeon. If it weren't for your team, she might have had to live with that metal shard forever. Thank you. The surgeon looked confused. Mr. Ashford, the foreign object is still there. Didn't you know? The gift basket in Damien's hand slipped. What? I thought you removed it. We attempted to, but it was too risky. We had to opt for conservative treatment. Didn't Dr. Evans tell you? Damien's eyes widened. He spun around, ready to race back to the mansion, when his phone vibrated. It was one of his men. Sir, it's not good. Mrs. Ashford, she's not breathing. He rushed me to the hospital again, his heart pounding with a terror he'd never known. He tried to contact Dr. Evans, but the man had vanished. When he finally got the real Dr. Evans on the phone, the man was perplexed. Chapter 8. Damien froze. The phone slipped from his numb fingers and clattered to the floor. When he came to his senses, he gritted his teeth and gave an order to his men. Watch Sienna. Don't let her out of your sight, but don't let her know she's being watched. The surgeon emerged from the operating room again. Damien looked at him, his entire being suffused with a desperate hope. The surgeon slowly shook his head. We were too late. Damien stumbled, his legs threatening to give out. This time, the surgeon handed him a transparent, sealed bag. This was in the patient's heart. We removed it, according to her last wishes. She said it was very important to you. Damien recognized it instantly. It was the other half of the blade. Damien's voice trembled. How did you know her last wishes? The patient, she left a letter. It was sewn into the lining of her shirt. A blood-stained letter was passed to Damien. The first line read, Hey there, whoever's reading this. There's something really important in my heart. You have to get it out. It's for a certain Mr. Ashford and for my friend, Lily. I don't think I'll be able to give my testimony in person, so. Here's what happened that night. Damien kept the entire investigation a secret from Sienna. The police immediately matched the blade fragment to the broken knife. Following the details in Alara's letter, they returned to the crime scene and, sure enough, found more corroborating evidence. Rick was apprehended at the airport. All the while, Sienna, under the constant, covert surveillance of Damien's men, knew nothing. Damien sat on a bench at the police station. People came and went, a blur of motion and sound, but he heard nothing. The only words in his head were the doctor's. The patient had no good options. Removing the blade was a suicide mission. Not removing it meant she might live, but with the constant threat of instant death. Damien finally understood why Alara had changed overnight. The evidence was complete. Her handwritten letter was what he wanted. But he felt no triumph. No relief. Only a hollow, crushing emptiness. He went to the villa he had prepared for Sienna. She was so oblivious, so confident in her deception, that she didn't even know he was outside the door. She certainly didn't know that the person she was currently texting was Damien, using her brother's phone. When her brother didn't reply, she started sending voice messages. It's good you're settled abroad. Everything is going smoothly here. That little stunt with the miscarriage nearly drove Damien mad. And now, just like we planned, he's finally pushed Alara to her death. Don't worry, one will never expose you now. Just wait for me to bleed Damien dry, get us a nice little nest egg, and I'll come join you. The phone in Damien's hand trembled. The miscarriage was a stunt. Sienna and Rick were siblings. The one with a connection to Rick was Sienna. It was never his wife. What have I done? He opened the door. Sienna, mid-sentence, froze. The smile on her face curdled. When she saw the phone in Damien's hand, all the color drained from her face. Soon, Sienna was tied to a chair in the basement, battered and bleeding. My brother? She spat, blood dribbling from her lips. What did you do to my brother? Slap. Another blow sent tears and blood mixing on her cheeks. Damien loomed over her, pressing his foot onto her head. You said my wife hired men to assault you, to make you lose your baby. But now that I think about it, you didn't look much like someone who'd just suffered a massive hemorrhage. Panic flared in Sienna's eyes. What are you going to do? Damien smiled, a chilling, dead thing. He gestured to the door, where a dozen men now stood. If you're going to put on a show, you have to commit. A little fake blood is nothing. That private medical team of yours already sold you out. A fake illness is never as pitiable as a real one, is it? I'll help you make it real. Sienna's eyes bulged with terror. Damien, this is a crime. If this gets out, you'll go to prison. Chapter 9. He laughed. I'm not afraid of dying. Why would I be afraid of prison? She stared at him, bewildered. What are you talking about? He just kept smiling at her. She began to tremble. Mr. Ashford, you're not serious? He pressed a dagger under her chin. Why would I lie? After I'm done with you, I'm going straight to my wife's grave to join her. Sienna saw the madness in his eyes and knew, with chilling certainty, that he wasn't joking. She started to scream, but the basement was soundproof, no one would hear. Damien walked out, leaving the dozen men inside, and closed the door. A day later, Sienna was barely breathing. He thought, it's time. He went to Ilara's grave. He wiped the headstone again and again, the polished stone reflecting his broken face. He tried to find excuses, justifications for his actions, but they all crumbled into dust. He'd wanted justice for his sister, but did that give him the right to torture his wife? To use such debased, cruel methods to break her? And the most important question, the one that would haunt him for eternity, when she changed so drastically overnight, why hadn't his first instinct been to ask her what was wrong? Why hadn't he tried to find out what she'd endured? Why was his only response to hurt her, to push her, to punish her until there was nothing left? They had come so far together, from school uniforms to wedding vows. And in the end, he had been the one to force them both down a road to ruin. He collapsed in front of Ilara's tombstone, his tears soaking the earth beneath him. He didn't know what he would say when he saw his wife and his sister on the other side. He would have to start with an apology. He thought that, and then, he closed his eyes for the last time. The end. And that's a wrap on today's reading here at Booked for Drama. If you felt anything, rage, swoon, secondhand heartbreak, let me know in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with your fellow drama lovers. If you have any requests, drop them in the comments. Until next time, keep reading, and keep the drama on the page.